Hey, folks. Great to be with you again. My name is Brandon Peel, and today we're talking with Gale West. Now, Gale helps people come home to themselves. She's written an international best-selling book called Money Come Dance With Me, and her website, Success with Soul, basically helps people develop a relationship with their true self, their higher self, and move into the world from that place. And so the reason why we're talking today is because Gale is just as nuts for the soul of the United States as I am and a lot of other folks right now. And so we're going to get to talk about that. She leads some really cool sessions on exploring the divine destiny of the United States and has also done some work, some parts work on the nation that we're going to get a chance to experience in a second. So, Gale, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here. This is very dear to my heart. This idea of the divine destiny of America, and I actually commissioned a friend of mine who does amazing mandalas in the Akashic records to create a mandala of the dream of America and the divine destiny of America, so we can bring that energetic pattern because. Symbols are really, really powerful. And I wanted to bring that energy into the world so we can begin to access it from a powerful place. So I'm very, very happy to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. We'll get a chance to look at that as well as the parts work kind of visualization as well. But I want to begin with the soul of the nation. Now, you've read about this. You've through your own inner work, accessing the Akashic records. Like, how do you understand the soul of the United States?
Well, to me, it's the dream of people, of humanity that has been around for thousands and thousands of years, to have a place where people can be free to be themselves. And the whole idea of America as we hold these truths to be self-evident, and that all men are created equal. And the idea of the creator and the, one nation under God. So the whole divinity that America was based on, unfortunately, our founding fathers were fallible, and they came from a place of and I was looking at the structure of the White House and what it was based on, and was talking about the idea of bringing in Roman columns and Greek columns that came from this idea of enlightenment, rational reason, but also democracy and the idea of a new nation. And so to me, the soul of America is the culmination of the dream of humanity and the dream of the rest of the world, where there's a place where people can thrive, flourish and thrive in freedom. So that's the soul of America.
Awesome. You had turned me on to the book, what is it, American Soul by Jacob Needleman, and I'm maybe 20 pages into it right now. And he shared something similar, but it was also about like being able to like refresh, to start over, to begin anew.
Yeah.
And because theoretically, what's possible here in the United States is possible anywhere else. But this place seems to be oriented towards new things. And I'm curious, given a lot of what we've begun to learn about the origins of democracy, beginning with the Haudenosaunee up in the Northeast. Are there new expressions of democracy that you're sensing, or do you feel like the ideals are fine, or the structure's off? Or
well, the ideals are really fine, because if you look at it and the way it was set up, which is kind of being dismantled right now with the justice system, there's all these checks and balances in place. So that had and the idea of, so looking at the White House, it was for a democracy, not a monarchy, which is very different. In the past, it was always a monarchy, and people were around the world were stunned that Washington was not making himself a king. Because in the past, everyone made themselves a king. He was not interested.
Right.
So it was this idea of this new place where people can thrive, where there's this divine destiny that is America, that is new. But it wasn't new. If you look at Greek traditions, and the idea of democracy was always there, but it was different. The way that was set up was based on a lot of Iroquois nations and the idea of these nations coming together. So in many ways, it was also influenced by Native American wisdom in a way that no other country had been.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it so different.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of remarkable. You think about it. You've got a bunch of folks who are scrappy. Some like Jefferson, a little more aristocratic, but they end up like rubbing up against indigenous folks and learning democracy, at least how it was practiced here, and then standing it up, and then liberating themselves from England, and it's so improbable. Like, it's so absolutely improbable that like a bunch of scrappy farmers won a war, stood up a democracy based on indigenous principles, and that it's lasted as long as it did. So I'm curious because this is our nation's 250th year. Folks are picking their head up a little bit more than they used to. What are you seeing in terms of what might be next for the development or expression of the soul of the United States? I know you've been doing these divine destiny calls that I got the chance to experience last week. Like, what are you seeing? What might be next for us?
Well, I think we need to heal the trauma that we haven't been dealing with. So we need to heal our legacy burdens of land genocide, slavery, just the pain that's still stuck in the land that we don't address. We need to heal. If you think about the idea of the pursuit of happiness, the hustle energy that is very indigenous to the United States, not to the indigenous, the Native Americans, but the idea that we have to hustle and that our inherent worth is based on productivity. And so that prevents us from actually going inside and doing the healing we need to do. There's so much shame, there's so much grief, there's so much trauma that we in internal family systems term are the exiles. And so we have all these then managers who manage the system that prevent us from really going in deeply and doing the healing that we need to do as a country and as a collective. So that's the problem. But honestly, when you get pulled down, the reason I've been doing these visioning things is, and I actually do a monthly Akashic Records gathering where I open the Akashic Records of the divine essence of America. And I keep getting, we need to have forgiveness. We need to forgive ourselves. We need to ask for forgiveness from those we've harmed. And we haven't just harmed people in America. We've harmed people around the world.
Oh, yeah.
Really own, not from a place of mea culpa, but from a place of understanding that it's painful to look at this, but we don't have a choice. And if we I keep saying, hold the vision, hold the vision, hold the vision, keep your eyes on the prize. And what also keeps coming up is to read the Martin Luther King speech, because that is the vision for America. That's it.
Well, I thank you for bringing that "I Have a Dream" speech up, because I want to swing that in a second. I want to keep digging into the divine destiny, because when I was in that session with you last week, what came up for me, what I was receiving was the solidarity, like just feeling that solidarity. Folks on the call, but also just in the broader kind of spiritual realm, and that there's support from the beyond, whether
Yep.
that's ancestors, whether that's cosmic beings, whether that's other energies, angels, spirits, uh, and also to have patience. I'm not a very patient person. And I'm curious, are there other themes outside of like healing, um, liberating ourselves from the hustle energy, holding the vision? Are there other themes that have been coming through for you and the folks you've been facilitating?
Um, the big theme is forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Yeah,
Wow. All right.
forgiveness. And that's
So,
really big. And also, if we look at the vision, it's a place where every person is valued, where every voice matters, and where every part belongs. That unity, this idea of unity and diversity, unity and diversity.
yeah.
So recognizing. So if I think about the whole, the also the Statue of Liberty, give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. But that was the dream that people came to. But then when they got here, oftentimes they were discriminated against, and every
Oftentimes.
yeah, every
Often.
single immigrant had struggles.
Yeah.
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 So that's
Um,
another
mhm.
pain that we have to heal.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the I Have a Dream speech, because after we spoke, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, I read through it again, and yeah, I think perhaps only second to the Declaration of Independence, like it captures the spirit of like what we're up to.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
mountaintop, the just buy the world a Coke Benetton ad, like this is the thing. This is the thing. And what is it going to take for folks to be able to keep that in their vision as they're dealing with the self forgiveness, the liberating from the hustle culture, healing the traumas? Like, how are we going to keep this vision in front of us?
Well, by keeping the vision in front of us. Like if you look at the idea we have a self. So in IFS, which is internal family systems, there is a self that is whole and complete. And I truly believe, you're talking about angels, whatever. I truly believe that every living system has an overarching deva or energetic pattern. So America, when I open the records of the overarching deva or angel that is in charge of the United States. So
Mm-hmm.
she holds the vision, she holds the dream of what we're up to. That is the dream that for the rest of the world. So if you look at the age of Aquarius, I was just in a choir a couple of days ago, and our encore song was the age of Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
So the age of Aquarius is that place where peace on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what we're moving towards. But if we look at, I think I mentioned to you, was it A New Reality by Jonathan and Salk? So the idea is that we are in the descend of Epic A, which he calls Epic A, and the ascend of Epic B.
Mm-hmm.
Epic A is unlimited resources, win, lose, take everything, take anything you want, doesn't matter. And Epic B is win-win, more intuitive, more creative, more feminine energy. So if you look around, you can see evidence. But if you just focus on all the disruption, that's what's going to pull you down. But if you start looking at, there are people doing this all over the world. There are people who are coming together in community, because there's not going to be one person that's going to save us like there was in the past. This is about coming together in community and knowing that we are more powerful than we know. Each human being is more powerful than we know. And if we hold that vision, we know attention, energy follows attention. If we hold the vision and say, what do I need? What's my part? What do I need to do together, collective? what is our collective trauma, and what can I do inside to heal my own collective trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. It's
Yeah.
not one or the other. It's together. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if that makes any sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Last year, I read this book called Dreaming the Council Way, and it was, I forget the name of the author, but she was talking about these like epochs, and that like 50, 60 years ago, the epoch of man, this kind of descending, extractive, competitive, scarce thing was going away, and we're beginning this new rise of the feminine, basically, like 50 years ago, which of course lines up with the Yugas and the Age of Aquarius and all that good stuff too. So I want to dive into the IFS. And so, I mean, internal family system of the United States. So what are all like the parts that are working? And so before you pull up the graphic, I want to just invite you to share with folks who may be unfamiliar with internal family systems or subpsychic parts. What are we actually talking about at the individual level? Then how do we map that onto a nation?
So on the individual level, the idea, and I've been around IFS since the early 90s. So, and it's really powerful. So the idea is there is a self that is whole and complete. And I've worked with people with incredible, horrible trauma. And deep, deep down, there is a self that's whole and complete, that will never be harmed, that will never be hurt. But what happens is when we have trauma, our little ones get put aside. They're called exiles, and they get put in, basically kind of sort of put in a closet. And then we create managers whose job it is to make sure they don't get hurt again.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then if that doesn't work, so managers could be that hustle energy, always being, another manager could be depression, and another manager could be always keeping moving. Another manager could be, I'm gonna go. I have to keep going. So, but then if that doesn't work, we have firefighters. Those could be addictive parts. Those could be violent parts. Those that say, okay, so they're basically putting out the fire. They get blamed, and then the managers then take over. So let me give you an example. So the other day I was working with somebody who was really complaining about how he always had this anxiety. This anxiety pushed him to, and always said, well, you're never enough, you're never enough, you're never enough. And so we went back to him being 12 when he, all of a sudden, this whole group of friends just totally dissed him. He was so hurt, and he was so ashamed that he went into hiding. He just kind of, shut down. Then he said, well, I have this other part that's, so we worked with that. We went back to the 12-year-old and kind of saw what was going on and what caused that. But then he said, well, what happened was I got into the, he was in 6th grade, I think. And so he was really good at sports. And so the coach invited him to be on the 8th grade team. He was really good at school, and he excelled at school. And then he decided that, well, it's because I have all this stuff over here that they're not liking me. Created another part that he said, I always just go to the edge, but I never make it to the finish line. Just go to the edge and never make it to the finish line. So that was protecting him from being hurt again, to go to the finish line and feeling that he was going to be rejected. So he had these, that's an example of managers, if that makes sense. And the exile was a 12-year-old who had been rejected, who had been hurt, who was still in hiding.
Okay. So let me just kind of sum up so we can move into the national part for a second. So, and Jacob Needleman talks about this too. Like, again, I'm only 20 pages in, but he's like, there's a unity of self. Indigenous cultures don't really have to struggle that hard with it, because when they have trauma, they have ritual and practice for moving through it, so they don't have to like exile apart.
Yeah.
In our culture, we're not intact, meaning like when something goes wrong, there's I've heard it said that like capitalism's number one product is not stuff. It's not money. It's not resource. It's shame. And I'm like,
Shame. Yep. It's
yeah,
shame.
that basically when something goes wrong, it becomes all about the self and some kind of internal story that makes, that needs to be told about the self versus being able to do something about it, through ritual practice, fix the system. So,
There isn't a
so
lot of shame in the cultures. There's an inherent because, and also because there's a connection to nature that we don't have anymore.
yeah,
So recognizing that everything is connected
yeah,
does not. So when you recognize that everything is connected, there is no shame.
yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as I'm starting to understand it, that prior to 6,000 years ago, everybody was animist. They knew everything was connected, not like intellectual knowledge, but like experience life that way. It was peaceful. We were in matrilineal clans, and we had rituals and processes for
Yep.
dealing with hurt
Yep.
or mistakes. And so, in a Western scenario where we don't have that, something goes wrong, we exile a part of ourselves that doesn't fit in some sort of context, whether it's family or school. We have managers who are there to make sure that we don't get hurt like that again.
Yep.
And when they fail, a firefighter comes on and like Captain Chaos and just goes,
And all hell breaks loose.
and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, totally. And then,
And then
then the managers go, no, you go away. And then the managers take over because the firefighters, yeah, they're not so
yeah.
good. But yeah.
So we have that going on in all, let's call it all 200 million like voting age souls here in the United States, probably the younger ones too. So we have that going on. Maybe less than 1% of folks are doing parts work, or maybe it's a couple percent tops. Now, then we also have this collective identity as a nation, as a soul. So I want to invite you now, if you're open, to pull up that diagram and show us kind of what's going on at the national level with our exiles, managers, and firefighters.
Well, this kind of explains. Let me see if I can do share. Oh. This kind of explains exactly what happens. Share. What happened to that? Okay. So if we look at America as a living system, we have the firefighters whose job it is to protect us in overwhelm. We have the managers whose job it is to make sure that things get managed. Then we have the legacy bearers. Those hold the history. And then we have the exiles. And then the idea of the true self, America's true self, is that then it's this place where America's wise and it's inclusive, it's courageous. So looking at it from that perspective, the managers are there to preserve order, to maintain the system, and to plan for the common good. But that doesn't always work. We're a country of litigiousness. So it's always and the exiles and the firefighters are actually putting people in prison.
Mm-hmm.
We put them away because
mm-hmm.
we don't want to see them. And then the legacy bearers are that energy that is our history, the pain of our history. And so you can have legacy burdens, which is what we have a lot of, and then legacy, what we call heirlooms. So the things that our ancestors brought us.
Mm-hmm.
So
it needs to be kind of like positive things, the heirlooms.
Positive things. Yes, the positive things. So if we look at the legacy heirlooms as far as the wisdom of the Native Americans that are part of our culture, but that also the way we sent them away, and the idea that this is one of the legacy burdens. So when our people came over from Europe, they looked at that there was this idea of whiteness being right, and so they looked at them as savages. And there was a point at which I think it was Washington said, well, they're kind of less than us, so we should be kind to them. But couldn't see the wisdom that they had, even though our country, the Constitution, is based on Iroquois nations. So
Yeah.
there's this disconnect.
Yeah. Let me just connect the thread here, and then I want to go into how we do what you say up here at the top, how every part has a purpose and every part can heal. So one of the super interesting things about our history is that when the Mayflower arrived, they had these great ideals, this compact, but they had no experience whatsoever with democracy. There was no democracy happening in Britain at the time.
Nope.
700 years of revolt and philosophy, but nobody had ever seen it done. So they get here and they see council. They see they sit around fires. They smoke the chanupa. They're basically seeing what democracy looks like in practice. Take what they could understand of that and map it onto the European experience and start to create these New England town councils that are historic. And the Quakers and the Mennonites and all this religious experimentation started to borrow some of these structures, and it ended up becoming institutionalized as the first constitution based on this in the Massachusetts Body Liberties. And so we had this indigenous inspired constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have folks writing about their encounters in Europe, selling thousands of copies. That's it. That's inspiring Locke and Rousseau to hypothesize on the nature of inequality and freedom and all this kind of stuff. And then they write their treatises, and then the founders end up reading that, even though the source was literally right there in their backyard. So it's I remember there was a quote from Jefferson. I think he was either corresponding with Monroe or Madison. He said something because Jefferson and Washington and Franklin all interacted closely with Native folks growing up, as well as in their adulthood. But they were looking towards the European continent for inspiration. And Jefferson said something like, I've looked everywhere. There is nobody's worked it out in Europe. The only thing that really exists is here. And so as he's developing the Declaration, as this mystical constitutional convention comes about with Haudenosaunee, Iroquois elders witnessing, Jefferson basically sources it right there. He's like, this is it right here.
Yep.
And so we have this kind of deep heritage. What would you call it? Legacy heirloom.
Heirlooms. Yeah, the legacy heirlooms, right?
The legacy heirlooms there. Now, in terms of us moving forward as a nation, we've got this summer, we've got this 250th coming up. You said every part has a purpose and every part can heal. So of the different parts that you just showed, the managers, exiles, firefighters, where does the healing need to start?
The healing needs to start with just acknowledging the trauma. Mm-hmm. And know that we're part of it. It's kind of like I reference it. We're swimming in the soup. We're like fish swimming in the waters, not realizing we're in the waters. So the more you can't really heal something that is not that you're not aware of. Mm-hmm. So the more you become aware of it, the more that you can say, okay, how is this affecting me?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, we talked earlier about hustle, and
Mm-hmm.
hustle is one of the biggest insidious managers that we have in our country, because hustle creates shame. It's based on a lot of it's moral because it's based on Protestant ethics.
Mm-hmm.
It has this energy that is like, if you're not continuing to move, you have no value. So
Mm-hmm.
this bizarre, the way that we're connected to hustle, just stepping out of that, because when we're always in hustle, productivity, feeling if I don't move, if I don't keep going, if I'm not productive, then there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
That keeps us stuck. So that's one piece.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, who am I? How do I want to live my life? And not, and then the other one is noticing how advertisements like are ubiquitous. They are
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, and they're designed to keep these exiles bubbling.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do this, you're not good enough. You don't do this, you deserve this. And that's the other thing. One of the managers is this elitism, this idea
Mm-hmm.
that we cannot fail, that we cannot admit that we are the best, and that's also keeps us stuck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one I sense loud and clear right now, given all the stuff that's being planned around the 4th of July. Um, so I'm curious because, like, depending on the study, it's half to three-quarters of us are paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
Uh, Three-quarters of us have a chronic condition. Half of us have at least two chronic conditions. So,
Well, part of that, that's another part. That's another thing. Part of that is our body's reaction to what's going on in the world
mhm,
and what's
mhm,
going on in America. Because what I keep hearing is what you have done to everyone else around the world is now in your face.
mhm,
We
mhm,
cannot pretend it's not here anymore.
right.
Because before it was always somewhere out there. What we were doing in Guatemala with the banana
Mhm,
plantations, and making people and killing the Mayans and whatever. We didn't know that. A lot of people didn't know what we were doing.
yeah,
But now it's in our face. We see it, and it's all over the place.
it's everywhere.
And the trauma is everywhere. Just,
Yeah.
just we have to go inside. We have to know
Mm,
that it's come home. It's come home.
yeah.
Can't pretend it's not here anymore.
Well, I think
I don't know if that
you,
makes
yeah,
sense.
no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, you and me and the folks who are involved in healing, growth, change agent type stuff, we all know this. But when I look out my window here, I'm in the middle of suburban America. Um, Folks are grinding. Moms are wearing themselves thin, accumulating, all sorts of mental and physical health conditions that, like I said, are manifesting as chronic conditions now. So I'm wondering, like, how do we stop? Like, how do we stop long enough to, like, pay attention to the trauma, pay attention to the messages from advertising? Because it feels like there's, yes, these folks, they're heads down for, like, at least they think they're going to be heads down for the next decade or two on, keeping the kids alive and getting into college and all that kind of stuff. They're not picking their heads up at all to be like, oh, what's up with trauma? What's up with advertising?
um, you know, it just takes a percentage of people.
Hmm.
That's a tipping point. So it's not going to take every single person, because they don't have the space. But if a tipping point of people start doing the healing, then
Hmm.
it ripples out.
Hmm.
And if you look at the women's magazines, they're talking about this stuff.
Hmm.
They're talking about taking time out for yourself, healing. Oprah did an amazing job helping people start healing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's out there, but we have to start ourselves. The more that we, instead of getting stuck in and that kind of complaining, just hold the vision and talk about the vision.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do some healing. Bless, 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 bless.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing that comes. Bless America. Bless America. Because when you bless anything, is as if our rabbi used to say, I'm not Jewish, but I studied with a Kabbalistic rabbi. So he would say, when you bless anything, is as if you look into its soul and you invite its potential to come forward.
Mm-hmm.
So if we bless America, bless our nation, bless the people that are struggling, send blessings out, and for ourselves, Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry, we're sorry, please forgive us, thank you, we love you, we're sorry. Just doing that in community, doing that together, and even by yourself, it's better in community because it creates a bigger impact. But just being conscious, the more, and that invites more consciousness.
Love it. Well, as we move to a close, I'm wondering, would you be open to sharing this mandala and like maybe leading us in a blessing of the United States, and then we can.
Well, the mandala has not been created. I just talked to her today.
What was it? What was that art form I saw? It was like blue and green with. Was that something else? Or no?
Oh, behind me?
No, it was something in email that I got from you.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the mandala of my soul. So I can share that with you. Hold
Oh,
on.
the one that Roni created. Okay,
The
that's
rock.
yours.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, got it. Okay, well, never mind then. But I
No,
would still love.
no, I don't know if you can see this.
Yes.
Okay. Can you see this?
Yeah, you can see it.
So what you have here is 5 dragons
Mm-hmm.
going around the planet and bringing love to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a mandala of my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And what she's been getting lately, I've been asking her, what kind of images are you getting? And she said, lots of colors, angels' wings, encircling the country. So the images, what happens as she opens the records is so she's opening the records of the divine destiny of America and the dream of America, and then getting these images to bring them forth into a mandala. And we know mandalas are really powerful because anything that's in a circle magnifies the power of the circle, of anything in the circle. So the images she's getting are bringing forth this energetic pattern that's holding that that destiny that is part of who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I look forward to seeing that. So let me just share a little bit about you, and then I want to invite folks to connect with you, and then if you would be open to closing us out with a blessing for the United States. So, Gale, your website is Success with Soul.
Yep.
And that's .com, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where. Go ahead.
And I want to invite people to go on YouTube. I had a podcast where I interviewed Jonathan Salk. He's a psychiatrist. He was Jonas Salk, the guy who invented the polio vaccine. My dream was to have a podcast and have him as my first guest, and I had that. So the podcast is called Cafe of Delights, and look to Jonathan Salk, and you'll get more about this idea of the new reality and what he talks about, the vision of what America can be and where it's moving to, and not just America, but the rest of the world.
The rest of the world, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll make sure we link to that as well as Success with Soul. And so, is there anything else you want folks to know before we move to our blessing?
I just want people to know that do not Do not be disheartened. This is a part of a process. You cannot have new without having things breaking down. So anytime there's a descend and an ascend, there's always disruption. So the more that you keep your eye on the prize, the more you live from that place, the more you heal your own trauma and just bless our country and ask for forgiveness. The more that it will happen. It's just a matter of time. It's already happened in the other world. And it's really important to recognize that we are not alone. There are beings that are here honoring us aloud and being so proud of the fact that we chose to be here at this time and place in history.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. So, folks, I hope you receive that blessing and know that we are supported, and that we chose to be here. We were built for this. Everything else is prep. The work ahead. and Gale, thank you for the work that you do. I know lots of folks are going to be reaching out and are going to want to definitely experience the divine destiny of America, and getting your advice on how they can become their full selves and come back home to themselves.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy to be here, and thank you so much, Brandon, for what you've done. I remember I did an interview with you way back when you did Planet on Purpose. Mm-hmm. And one of the things you said to me was, it's already happened. It's moving. It's going to happen. Hold the vision. So you're here. The tipping point of the people that are in that new reality are here. And so, yeah, thank you for your work.
Thank you. All right, folks, take care.